Hello, hello, and welcome back, you beautiful beings that are contributing to this amazing energy in the We Too 5-day challenge, where we are going back to the basics of spelling our lives into abundance and the magic of and the alchemy of really mastering the foundations of trust, because without trust we have nothing. Hello, Christina. And I know it's Saturday and you've probably got better places to be than here. So if you're listening to this on the replay, post your comments and questions. Remember, at the end of the day of tomorrow, I will be gifting a 60-minute session with me. Hello, Steve Barnes. I see you in here. And please, if you guys are joining the challenge, who have been part of the 7-Day Believers Challenge before, open your hearts. I'm only asking you to give $8.88 to participate in this one, because there's nothing better than giving when you feel like you can't, to a cause that's bigger than all of us. I think one of the biggest ways that we get back to our hearts is by being appreciative of what we have, and also paying it forward, because we all know the laws of reciprocity. It comes back to you. So if you are in here and you have been going along with us on the 5-day challenge and you haven't contributed your $8 to Feeding the Furballs, which is an amazing initiative that feeds feral cats in Durban, please do so. It's so appreciated. And to all my amazing girls in here, shout out to Sue, to Sherry, to Christina, to Helen, to Tracy, and I think all in all, out of the 150 people in this group, 11 of you have generously donated. And I know some of you are finding it tight right now, so you gave anyway. And really, I really appreciate that. So thank you for being here again today. It's so good to be with you all. And I just wanted to say I'm loving seeing all your comments and your feedback and the connections that you're creating between yourselves, and keep it going, because it's so beautiful. I've been out of the office all day today. I was working with a herd of horses where there's a couple of things going on. So I've been out of the office and I've just come in. So I will go in and answer any of the questions that you asked. And I have posted one of the videos on how to trust that your body is your greatest consciousness facilitator, and how to use your body's yes and no to really stay focused and congruent with what you know, regardless of what's going on about you. So it is posted in the post. And if you have any questions about that, let me know. You know, I think one of the biggest things that I really want to say to you is, I think as empaths, as very sensitive, intuitive people that you all are, that feel the energy of others, that it's so important to practice lightening up. I think we do take our work really seriously, but I think that sometimes that almost stops the flow. And when we can actually just laugh at ourselves and be the biggest joke of your own reality, I always say we're cute, we're not bright. A lot can change when we function from that place. So if you have any questions, post them in the comments below. I'm going to get going, because I think that's it. There's 4 of us here, and that's wonderful. And I know that the rest of you will go back and listen to this again. So today, really what we're going to look at is really going back into that place of, now that you are owning your yeses, and looking at all of the boundaries that you need to put in place, and still stay in your heart at these times of uncertainty and chaos. When you use this magic of what you're spelling into being, really comes from the basic 5s. We've covered the yes, and today we're going to look at the no, the hell no. So give me a hell no in the comments, because I know that you know that once you trust your yes and you connect with the earth and clarify your yeses, yes, I'm here in this body, and I'm here to live my life, then we need to learn how to say no. And I know as people pleasers who we're always looking to keep the peace and not make waves, and we all relate to that this is a challenge for so many of us who are so used to giving up what we want in order to give others their way, and that it's not very kind. I think you're knowing that. Yeah, you're working on lightening up. Good, Sue. Yeah, we have to just smile from the inside out, even when we're crying, because laughter is such a high vibrational frequency, isn't it? And very infectious too. And of course, wateeko doesn't like that because it wants to keep its story in place. So yeah, just be gentle on yourselves as you do this, because this, I think, is really what it means to walk the spiral path is yes, we're human. Yes, we judge. Yes, we screw up. Yes, we make bad choices. But once we're, not necessarily always through it, I think laughing about it when we don't know whether to laugh or cry is to just let it come forth in whatever way, shape, or form that it does. And, I think that we have to say yes to our soul's purpose. And there's a whole lot of other things that needs to happen that you need to say no to, not because they're bad or because you don't like them, but because if you are going to give your yes, there are a million other things that you have to say no to. So no speaks to where you will not allow your energy to go. So for example, no to hosting wateeko in your mind. And it's not about good or bad. It's about focus, and it's about saying no to the things that would distract your focus from what you've said yes to. And I think it's really important to bring in here what we're being asked to is to stand in our truth and have flexible, healthy boundaries in all our relationships with other people, with how we're responding with animals, how we're being with nature herself. And that is to always appreciate, right? The gratitude piece, the thank you piece, in a way that's going to always take you toward more of what you want and less of what you want. And who doesn't want better? And, this is something that I really try and impart as best as I can in all my avenues and all my platforms of really owning the wild woman. We're mammals. We have an animal part of us. And a lot of times we've been told that's something to be afraid of, to be fierce in our wild woman and own our no. It's like, no, do that again and I will energetically kill you. I'll chop off your head. There are a million ways to use killing energy. And not get stuck in this bad training of this reality to shut down, but to be willing to use the killing energy. This is the dark horse energy. This is the prowess of the wolf. This is the energy that nature knows so well how to use. That in that there's a time and a season for all things, including the dark earth, the dark mother, the death of the old story, and to use it with great reverence. This is not something that we use lightly, but I just believe that we have to be willing to use that killing energy in a good and meaningful way for the betterment of ourselves and our bodies, the health of our bodies, and the health of our relationships with other people. And I think that this has been, I certainly think that this has been one of the major influences of the old patriarchal society. And I don't know if you agree. I'll just throw this out there as a seed to be planted, as a side note to today. But we are mammals, and we are fiercely protective as women of nature herself, of what we are birthing into the world, and also of the relationships that we hold dear to us, that we have been made wrong for so long in using that. It's the witch, and now people call you a bitch, which is giving the word itself a very screwy, very wonky vibration, because to be fierce, actually anatomically we are bitches. We have we have the ovaries and the reproductive system to make babies and to create and birth beautiful things into the world. And we know when to push, and we also know when to not push, right? To move through the contractions of life, right? Just as our lungs know how to contract and expand, we know how to do that. And when we can own the fierceness of our no, everything starts to change, because that is so liberating, and not just for you, but for other people as well. And this is where it's like, in order for us to exist and work in the overworld, we have to go into the underworld. We have to look at the contrasts of what's going on underneath in the depth of the ocean and bring that up into the light, into consciousness. And the way that we do this is by trusting our no and trusting our yes. So no speaks to the focus, doesn't it, of your expressions, what you're expressing as your truth, not what's true for everybody else, but to really, really stand in your power of knowing your no in the energetic form of that. And the yes, that's your expression. And the no's are always about protecting that focus of your yes. So it's akin to, relationships in Chinese medicine of the wood element, which is liver, gallbladder, thymus, dreamer, manifester. And the no's are all about keeping the energy flowing towards your dream and the manifestation of your dream. And for those of you that, might be thinking, this is a little crazy. I know that you know how many thousands of books have been on the New York bestseller list that's been titled, when I say no, I feel guilty, or how to say yes when you want to say no. And there's so many people out there, aren't there, talking about authenticity and leadership that's still very deeply grounded in the opposing voices of that. And this is not what we're gathering here to do. We're talking about having a very healthy and timely ownership of saying no, and to express ourselves through true emotions that flow through the moment without getting caught up in them or distracted by them. And in short, I think this is where we're able to take very strong aligned action, because it's based in the heart. It's based in kindness versus aggression. You can be strong and fierce because you are. So for example, when you hear people talk about describing a beloved grandfather, they always talk to that sort of beloved, gentle strength, to be strong and clear in your actions in a way that's also kind and compassionate. So when we don't say no when we need to, this is where we cultivate a habit of passive aggressive response to the dynamics of life. We don't say no, but we needed to. So now we just become passive aggressive. And when we say a false no, or we're excessive in our no's, this is where we cultivate anger, and it turns into outrageous aggression. So rage, and this can also be a saying no to yourself. So for example, if your need to survive is constantly saying no to the need to nourish your soul, does it make sense that this is where it's going to create a lot of internal conflict that's going to become very aggressive? And this is where people turn anger inward and become violent to themselves. And this is where we see disease showing up. And this is really where wateeko is really happy to grow in your mind, because it's a perfect breeding ground for that. So when we're in right relationship with our no, does it make sense that our inner love warrior can then be expressed in a healthy way? And then we are able to engage our discernment in all things. We have the courage to face our fears, and these qualities allow us to determine and do whatever it takes for that healthy expression of our work, of our heart, okay? So it could be a work in the world, but it could just be, how are you expressing that from your heart? Because the no allows you to develop an emotional integrity and clarity. And then from this point, we can start to gain an identity of self-expression in an environment of kindness, versus creating a sense of identity of power over, or some kind of very aggressive building of self, which is ultimately a false sense of self. And I think this is where our work in the world as women is so important, because we've been underneath that even though, you know, our ancestors have done a lot in standing up for femininity, we're needing to look at a different way of doing this that isn't the doggy, you know, kiss each other in church on Sunday, and then kill each other like that dog eat dog world on a Monday. So this is where we're coming into a right relationship with the predator and the prey aspect of our animal bodies, right? Our mammalian bodies, which is to keep the survival and the health of the whole together. We have to, first of all, as they say, put your oxygen mask on first and then say no. This is where you will always see the stallion in prey animals, in a horse world. The stallion always leads from the back, and there's always the dominant mare that's leading from the back as well, and the ones in the front that are stepping into their line of duty to keep the whole safe. The same happens in the predator aspect when you sort of look at apex predators like wolves or lions, where they're dependent on the qualities and the attributes of the whole pack of lionesses. The lionesses do the hunting, and it's the speed of the youngsters that is reliant on in the whole, in the we too, to initially chase and take down. But the wisdom of the older lions that have had more, lionesses that have had more experience, then come in and teach the young one who has the speed how to take down the prey so that everybody eats. So give me a yes if you're following this. I'm just having a look here at what you're saying. So let me know if this is making sense so far. Hell no, says Sherry. Told repeatedly. Oksana, you have a beautiful smile. And, you know, I think the most beautiful way that we can receive judgment as a gift is to just say thank you, which is why it's one of the 5 basic words, is to say thank you. You know, thank you for showing me my joy, and not, you know, play small or shrink when people say that. I know I used to feel awful like that. My mother always used to say, you know, I could never be sad because I looked angry. And I also was born with this interesting birthmark between my eyebrows on my third eye, that when I was really hurting or really in tune to seeing what other people weren't willing to see, this thing just grew brighter and brighter. And for a long time, I was really ashamed and embarrassed, because it kind of gave me away. And, you know, what do you do as a child when you're told, oh, you're too happy, and it's not okay to be happy in this insane asylum called planet Earth, because you have to be on an antidepressant or crazy to smile or laugh in this world. So keep smiling, please, because, you know, what a beautiful way to bring more light and more love into the world. What about compromise and self-assertiveness versus aggressiveness? All right, so aggressiveness, no, is not assertive. Yeah, so I think, again, this is where, when you are, if I understand your question correctly, Christina, what we're saying here is, when you own your no, and it's based solely from the compassion of the heart, it isn't aggressive. I think we get aggressive when people are not honoring our boundaries. There's a time to be aggressive and to use that killing energy to say no, but you can do it in a way that people hear you. So I always ask, you know, what are people willing to hear, but what can they hear? And then not to waste your time on people that can't hear you. You know, it's just like, I think the same way as looking at compassionate listening isn't about compromise. We're taught that in order to have right relationship, we have to compromise. We have to give up our truth in order to come to some kind of agreement. And if your heart isn't in alignment with that, it's going to turn that anger inward, right? This is where we literally destroy ourselves from the inside, because we feel like we have no voice, or we're not being heard. So, you know, I don't believe in compromise. I believe in a win-win. So we have to look at what's going on here. How can I change it? Because maybe it's not up to you to change it. And first of all, to get very clear on, is this even yours? your thought, feeling, or emotion, or is this some programming from the virus of the mind, from wateeko? So, I want to be mindful of the time. So let me just carry on here a little bit more and keep posting your questions, and hopefully I'll answer it as we continue with this on the no. Because if you look at the, sort of any nation that's built on the backs of tearing others down, which is often what happens in that aggression, it's always rotten at the core, and I say that as a true African, when I just look back on the history of this country, how much of that is going on in the world. And that's not what we want. So I want you to journey and do some meditation work on your no today by meeting the spirit of wood. In this case, remembering wood is like this personification of growth, right? Woods, forests, something like that. And ask to be shown a way to understand how you may be out of balance with this wood element in your life. Because you all know, if you've been with me for a while, that when we don't water our wood, what happens? The wood snaps. Remember, wood is governed, as I said, by liver and gallbladder and the thymus, right, which sits on kidney 27, which is a water element, right? The kidneys are governed by water. So when you are out of right relationship, when you are not flexible, when you are not able to show up and be flexible in your boundaries, the wood breaks, right? Because you're not watering your wood. It snaps. And also, I think a side note of that is that when we are being overly protective, because of what all of you are saying, where you're not tolerating, where your boundaries have been crossed, if we don't express our anger in a healthy way by saying, no, this is not acceptable, or yes, and this is not acceptable, that's where we end up turning anger inward, and we start to go into that pathological place of rage, okay? It has to go somewhere. So if we're not expressing our truth and we're not standing in our no, does it make sense that this is where anger turned inward? We close down our heart. We compromise our immune system because we're in this constant defensive mode because we feel like we're being attacked. Don't smile. What are you smiling at? I remember my mother saying that in the car when we were just giggling for nothing. It's like, what are you laughing at? Like we needed a reason. We start to feel wrong about being in our true nature. So we need to really look at this from a place of flexibility, right? When we're threatened as well, or we sense danger, what happens? Again, wood element governs tendons and ligaments. I had to snap my Achilles tendons 3 times before I actually got to do some of this deep inner work that was very needed at the end of a very narcissistic relationship and not knowing how to get out of it, right? My body was like, you are not going to run away from this. You're going to stay and you are going to sit with this pain until you are able to move in a loving, kind way without it killing me, right? And of course, I didn't listen. So it snapped 3 times. And I don't know, post in the comments below if you've ever snapped tendons or torn muscles and in a place, and thinking back to that time, what was going on in your life? What were you not listening to? What was your body trying to tell you? And when you didn't, again, anger turned inward, snapped tendons and ligaments. And look at, where do you need to maybe prune back? Okay, where do some of your old boundaries not work with you in your alignment with your truth now? Where do you need to do some pruning so that you really bloom in the next season? You just need to look at nature again and know this is the time of winter where it's time to prune the roses back and the hydrangeas back so that they have this beautiful full show of blooms in the summertime. And this is again why I love Chinese medicine so much, because it really gives us a beautiful description, very living description of our own internal gardens and our own internal climate, and where we are out of congruence with our true nature. Just look to nature and she will always show you what to do with that. So journey on that and ask the wood to show you where do you need to perhaps prune back to make way for new shoots and new growth and new truths to come forth in a heart way, to the things that matter most to you. And then once you start to understand that, and you start asking, how can I work with the wood element to create more balance and flow in your life? Notice, and I think this is important, we don't start with saying, how can I work with you to make balance? Because that's a remedy question, and we don't know the diagnosis yet, right? This is where a lot of people don't get to the root cause in our journey work of where it started. Where did you first take on the belief that you weren't allowed to laugh, or that you were too much fun and too much joy? And, I think if you're going to be working with the medicine wheel, we need to look at the 5 elements of the feeding cycle within them. And I have a year's course on that. If you're interested, just let me know. But we're looking here at making sure that we are watering our wood so that we're not combusting internally, right? Burning the dead wood, or creating disease in our body because we feel like we're not expressing ourselves, and we become a ticking time bomb in and of ourselves. So if you want to know more about how to work within the feeding cycle of the 5 elements in the compass direction, have a look at some of my other trainings that I have available. There's plenty of other people that do this work too, but find something that resonates with you so that you can start to better understand how to come into right relationship with yourself, and that all emotions are healthy when they're healthy. And we need to look at them as equally important in keeping us in the flow of the feeding cycle of your life, right? Your living legacy. And I think the importance of this is that you also have to get underneath the diagnosis. Remember, diagnosis and prognosis and conclusions lock you down because they're made from the intellect of the mind, and they're not necessarily the truth, which is why I like to ask generative questions and go underneath all of this to a practical path of how do I live into authenticity without buying into the diagnosis or the prognoses of wateeko that keep you distracted in the mind, and we keep repeating the same thing over and over again and never get the results that we are actually asking for. So give me a thumbs up if this is making sense. And then another way that you can work with the no is to ask your team players, your helping spirits, your angels, your animal guides, to show you your dreaming self. And given that your dreamer self, are you in good relationship with it? Is it healthy? Or is there something else that you need to be in relationship with that allows you to live into your soul's purpose? Maybe you're in an excessive relationship with your dreamer, and in that case, you maybe are not getting anything done, or starting projects and not finishing them, or you're juggling too many balls in the air. And another journey to a regular helping spirits is to ask to be shown the current state of your relationship with your manifestor. And this is where these journeys can really help you with this. So, same structure with the dreamer and the manifestor. So how many no's does it need to take to get to one true yes? Because being in a healthy relationship with yes and no is always going to cultivate the grounding necessary for you to be in the core structure of your energy body. Trust that, and then that energy body can then receive more and more of the advanced teachings and evolve with the advanced teachings. That's the growth of wood. And in that way, your energy body stays in congruence and alignment with you, the you that is living in your truth, in this physical body, in your truest expression of life. And then you can start to respond and adapt, but not lose yourself in it. Does that make sense? When you do that, in responsiveness rather than reactiveness, then the allowance comes through that allows you to look with greater accuracy at your internal climate and what's going on in the external, and then interpret it back in. And, this is where I see a lot of advanced practitioners are grossly lacking in these basics, where they're constantly interpreting what's going on in a way that is completely shamed by their wounded child. And the problem is these are practitioners that have really big skills and lots of helping spirits working with them. So the drama that they create in their life is huge, because going back to not having cultivated your yes and your no is not in place, right? The foundations of trusting to own your yes and to own your no, and going from there. So that's it. I want you to honor your yes, know your no, and then comment below once you've done your journey work on one aligned action where you are watering your wood and how you're going to really strengthen your foundations, get the tap roots going down, communicating with the other trees in your neighborhood, which is the We Too movement, and also what you're reaching for. You know, what are you shooting upward for? If you take that metaphor of a tree, which is so wise in its ancient wisdom for us to grow in community, strengthening our connection to the earth, strengthening our connection to our heart, and being in right relationship with ourselves and others with empathy and integrity and kindness, because we need you to show up and do the work that you came here to do in the world. So, I wanted to keep these really short and sweet, and I hope you're getting into the fun and the joy of being flexible when you are in trusting yourself to honor your no and honor your yes, giving yourself permission to say no, thank you, not now. And I have plenty of other short videos in my YouTube channel around how to say no and how to give yourself permission to say yes and how to strengthen healthy boundaries. So, for all you perfectionists out there, remember, under perfectionism is always shame. And we have to start looking at who shamed you, because it was never your fault, right? Please remember, none of this is your fault. It was just your primary caregivers, your community doing the best they had with what they had. And this is no reflection of you. There's nothing to be ashamed of. And I really want you to take this and run with the basics of looking at, being full of yourself, being full of joy, being full of beautiful ideas, being full of love and creation, and just run like the gates are left open. Just look to dogs to show us how to stay in joy, or to how dolphins play in the wild, and just connect through the sheer presence of pleasure of being in love enough to give love to others. And I'll see you back here for, where are we? Yes and no. So tomorrow we're going to go through the please, the thank you, and I'm sorry. So have a beautiful rest of the day or night wherever you are. And just remember, I love you. Thank you for being here. And thank you for sharing your light and your love, and giving it back to everyone else in this group. I so appreciate that. And I know that we are running stronger than ever. We are blowing in the wind when we need to. We are bending in the storm. We are unshakable because we are grounding into the basics of trusting in yourself so that you can trust others, trust in life, trust in the universe, and trusting that you are enough, more than enough. So that's it. I love you. Bye. Mwah. Post your comments and questions.